this response with this. There are too many people on the political right and in the political center who haven't taken them seriously. I remember when Mamdani was running for office, in fact, you and I might have even talked about it then, I was imploring fellow conservatives in Washington to take him seriously, not because I agree with him, I disagree with everything he says, but that I could see, having spent a lot of time in education at K-12 and in universities, I could see that this guy had the ability to describe, to persuade, and that combination with that terrible ideology of socialism and Marxism is really lethal for the American polity. It's very important that those of us who work on the right take these folks seriously, and it means we go straight to the heart of what allowed them to be popular, which is the misunderstanding of their principles and of their policies.
Dr. Kevin Roberts joining us right now, Heritage Foundation. I look at all of this, and I hear people on the right, I hear conservatives like, man, I hope AOC runs for president. That'd be great for us. No, it wouldn't be great for us. It wouldn't be great for America if one of our parties, one of our two major parties, actually embraced this kind of socialism, this Marxism. Sir, I'm not sure if you caught this. Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday had one of the co-chairs of DSA on, and I'm going to play you this little soundbite as she runs through the laundry list. Shannon runs through the laundry list of what the DSA stands for, and this co-chair of the DSA said, absolutely, you're 100% right. Take a listen to this.
Okay, so we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay, replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
You hear the chuckle in her voice, just the cavalier way that she talks about tearing down the fabric of the United States of America. If that's not a wake-up call for Americans on both sides of the aisle, sir, I'm not sure what is.
No, I'm not either. And God bless Shannon Bream for asking those questions so pointedly. And, you know, the lady responded honestly. Look, if you take that policy platform articulated by those responses to Shannon Bream's questions, and AOC or Mamdani, someone like that with their persuasive ability is the head of the ticket, they will get 47 or 48% of the vote nationally. Now, don't shoot the messenger, Rich. I'm not celebrating that. I think it's awful. But the reality is that this misconception about how you should answer those great questions is widely held by almost half of the American people. And so the response to this is, as we talked about in our previous thread, is to improve education. But in the near term, because that takes a long time, those of us on the political right, variously, we have to offer an ambitious, aspirational vision with our policy about why it's better. And we have to explain to Americans, with respect, I need to say, why the alternative is so bad. We cannot paint with just these really boring colors, as Ronald Reagan would say. We got to paint a bold vision for the American people. I happen to think that that's possible and even likely, but that is responses to questions that for you and me, we would answer diametrically differently.
If I can get you just to move for just a second, maybe turn your head a little bit because we're getting a little bit of interference on your cell phone. Here's my big question. Have we failed to talk about why our way of life is so great? And because we've just kind of taken it for granted, someone's filled that void. I always say that nature abhors a vacuum. It seems like maybe we forgot to talk about how great this country is. I was just in the Smithsonian, and I was simply amazed on how the Smithsonian, and there are parts of the Smithsonian that just ran down America. Have we just kind of taken a back seat and abdicated our responsibility for showing this next generation how wonderful this country is?
We have. We've taken for granted that every subsequent generation of Americans would wake up as grateful as you and I are for being American, for being in this country. My colleague at Heritage, Mike Gonzalez, has led the way against the nonsense, the indoctrination, the DEI foolishness of the Smithsonian Institution. Thankfully, we have finally exposed that, especially over the last couple of weeks. But that means that if we recognize we're winning on the policy front against the Smithsonian, against some universities that have been indoctrinating our students and our people, we have to fill it with something, right, Rich? We have to make sure that we're not just talking about and advocating for, but expanding the number of people who support the realistic, accurate picture of American history and in America, warts and all. But let's be honest, there are 100 times more good things about America and American history than there are warts. We've just been victims of our success. The good news is, you know that I'm an eternal optimist. The good news is, I think we caught these problems in time to be able to do something about them. And the fact that someone like you, with your audience and your background, is talking about this is not a small matter. I believe both electorally, politically, but even more importantly in our daily lives, we in this year of America 250 have been emboldened. We've been encouraged to talk about all of those good things about America that maybe we've forgotten about. Maybe we've not mentioned to our kids as often as we should.
Big question. And we have about 2 or 3 minutes here. Big question. When your kid comes home from college, like mine came home from college, I don't have to worry about mine. We talk all the time, and I think he's got his head on straight. But a lot of people have their kids come back from a place like UVA or William and Mary, or they go to some liberal arts school up north, and their kid comes back, and you would have thought they had gone to Moscow or Beijing the way they've been indoctrinated. What are parents to think? What are parents to say? How are parents to talk about this? Because if you instantly challenge these ideas that they have in their brains full of mush, they instantly will just snap back and fight you on it. How do you have these conversations with your kids when you fear you're losing them?
Man, what a great question. My wife and I have 4 kids, college age, and I've also spent some time in higher ed, as we were talking about.
1 minute.
And it's really important that the first thing that we do, I think especially as guys, where we want to go win the debate immediately, is not to make a statement, but to ask a question. And a really fair, genuine, and because this is our children, loving question. And it could be, well, explain to me how that works. Explain to me, what else the professor said. Explain to me, this is my favorite, explain to me the principle on which that claim is based. And just be really clear. So I'm not challenging you. I'm not debating you. But this is something that merits a conversation. And I think 2 things can happen if you do it well, and our children are receptive, which they should be, is number one, they understand, this is a conversation about a really important topic. It matters to mom and dad, so I'm going to have this conversation. So the substance is good. But then the second thing is it helps build our relationship with our kids. And it's really important because of the radicalism of the radical left right now, which is trying to co-opt our children and their friends, that we understand in addition to the substance of the thing, Rich, we also need to build really strong relationships and friendships, because keep in mind, at the center of the target of the radical left is the nuclear family. They want to tear down every institution in America. It's really important we not allow them to do that, especially if we're paying for that expensive college tuition at places like UVA and William and Mary.
One of the things I think is Gen X and boomers as well, we need to remind people. And I remember I was on the air in Miami the day that Fidel Castro died. And Dan Le Batard, I was doing sports at the time. Dan Le Batard, who is he's a monster talk show host, podcaster. He came on that day and kind of broke the wall down and explained to me what happened when his family fled Cuba and how awful it was. You hear Marco Rubio talk about these things of fleeing these communist regimes. I think Gen X and baby boomers need to remind ourselves what a scourge communism, Marxism is, from people that actually lived it, that escaped Vietnam, that escaped China, that escaped Russia, that escaped Cuba, Venezuela, and actually have first-person accounts, so you understand really what we're facing if we don't wake up.
No, it's true. It's like everything else. We need to put a human face on these really important matters. We need to tell stories. And you offer a couple of great examples. I mentioned my heritage colleague and great friend, Mike Gonzalez, himself a refugee from Cuba, now a very proud American. One of the reasons that Mike was so successful in confronting the nonsense of the Smithsonian over the last few months is because of his own personal story. And by the way, I think that's also a great way to have conversations with their kids and their friends, when they can understand the human side of what seems to be a persuasive political agenda. You and I know better, but it seems persuasive to that generation, the better off we are.
Sir, I appreciate you coming on with me. We're going to keep talking about this, and I will catch up with you soon.
Thanks for everything you do. Take care.
Thanks so much. Dr. Kevin Roberts joins us from the Heritage Foundation. Give me your reaction to this. We'll take your text messages, 833-804-1140. We need to take this seriously, not just on the left, not just on the right, not Republicans, not Democrats, but as Americans, we need to take this seriously. I want to get your thoughts. 833-804-1140. We'll continue. It's News Radio WRVA.
Correct.
Let me remind everybody today's program